Well, one of the things we saw out of the events in New Orleans this past week was a focus on how other countries impact our market prices.
In this week's Bottom Line, Neil Melancon takes a look at how growing overseas demand and outside factors drive our markets here at home.
The Bottom Line is brought to you by the Cotton Board, strengthening the fiber of our industry.
Late last week, traders in Chicago were looking out of their windows and having a little bit of a freak out over the early snow coming down. Even though you've got weather reports in front of you that say that the weather will be pretty good for the harvest season for the next couple of weeks at least, you've got to be thinking, if it's this cold in Chicago, what's it like in Iowa? Do I really bet the farm on a forecast? Well, closer to home here in Louisiana, we're kind of cheering that snow as it means a little bump in the markets as we've seen lately. However, other issues such as transportation, storage, and outside market influence are the same here as anywhere else. Pierre Dalaperouse, managing director for the High Quest Partners Company, was in New Orleans recently for the Oilseed and Grain Trade Summit. You'll get to see the highlights of that from next week from AJ. Dalaperouse did take the time to tell us Midwest farmers this year will not only have to worry about competition and shipping among themselves with a record grain crop here coming in, but they'll compete for space with energy commodities as well.
Obviously, there's going to be an overhang in the market over the next year or two, but one of the challenges there is that, how is all this crop going to be stored and moved to the market? And so there's going to be an issue with, we already see that with shale gas competing for rail cars and for rail capacity.
The bottom line always comes down to dollars, doesn't it? And right now, with the dollar being so strong, we're seeing it hit our stock market as well as the commodities. A stronger dollar means less spending power for other countries to buy our products at a time when we've got a huge amount of them coming in from the harvest. This in turn will mean even less money offered to farmers who are already going to pay more for shipping this year. And the one comfort they have, guys, is the fact that there's so much grain coming. The closest year we've had is 2004, where we saw a bump in October's report for the grain, and we're going to probably see it again in November with this huge amount of grain coming in.
And talking about the shipping costs, probably the only good news for Louisiana farmers is because we're so close to the ports, basis prices are normally much lower.
We get a paid a basis and they get a negative basis up the river.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Neil Melancon.
Well, that does it for this edition of This Week in Louisiana Agriculture.
Be sure to join us next week when we'll head back into Holly Clegg's Trim and Terrific Kitchen, and AJ Sabine brings us coverage from the Oilseed and Grain Trade Summit in New Orleans.
Until then, you can watch all of our stories from this show or past shows on our website, twilatv.org, and keep up with what we're doing via Facebook and Twitter.
For Kristen Oakes and the entire TWILA team, I'm Avery Davidson. Thank you for watching. We hope to see you again right here next week.